But let's shift focus to the few successes that Parliament has been able to report. Among all the din, one of the acts, or rather amendment bills that got passed, was amendments to the Enforcement of Security Interest. For short, we would call it the SARFAESI Act, which actually allows banks to sell their bad loans to asset reconstruction companies like Arcil, which are then able to securitize it and perhaps sell it off to other CEOs or to other companies, or perhaps to try and reconstruct that asset in some fashion. There was also an amendment to the debt recovery laws, and both those together are expected to make life a little easier for banks as they try to generate some money out of their NPLs. To discuss how much better are these amendments, P. Rudran, Managing Director and CEO of Arcil, joins us. On the phone line is Mr. S.L. Bansal, the Chairman and Managing Director of Oriental Bank of Commerce. Mr. Rudran, first to you. One of the important things you told me was that you can now convert part of your debt into equity. And that was not allowed earlier. This amendment allows you to convert debt into equity. Now, does this mean that you will be able to take over more assets from the banks, or you will be able to turn them around faster?
More than taking over more assets from the banks, what I can do is the reconstruction will become much easier, because there is a lot of burden debt. When the debt is more, there is a lot of burden to the unit, the borrower, which can be reduced to some extent if we can do a structuring of the debt component, which will give a better, the financial burden on the company will come down for some time. And if I'm sure that the unit is going to make a good profit later, a potential viabilities can be established, and then in that case I will reduce the loan amount, the financial burden on the company will come down, and later when the company is doing well, that time I will be able to take part in the share also, because the share value will go up. So like a PE investment, to that extent I will not be making any loss. In fact, my profits earnings can be improved.
Okay, Dr. Rudran, hi, thanks very much for joining in. I just actually wanted to focus on one clause, which was banking and financial institutions can accept immovable as well as movable property to settle their claims.
Yes.
Can you just take us through the rationale behind that and how positive a development it is?
The rationale is, many times you will find the bids are, when we are going for sale, bids will have to be submitted. I have seen many cases, people come and see the property, but they actually don't submit their bid, because, some kind of a cartelization takes place. Sometimes, the promoter himself will drive in such a manner that nobody purchases his property. So this will act as a deterrent for such activities. The cartelization will not take place, because the bidders will very well know that if they are not going to bid for it, the lenders themselves can take over the assets at least at the reserve price, because there is a reserve price is there. And many people, what happens, they will not bid for it, or they will always bid less than the reserve price. So this will act as a deterrent for such activities.
Okay.
And this will help in a big way, because the value of the asset will be realized. To that extent, the borrower also will be helped, because his burden can be, his liability can be brought down.
Let me come to the borrower and to the lender, actually, Mr. Bansal. Mr. Bansal, what is the composite collective impact of the amendments passed? One, of course, as Mr. Rudran was saying, you can keep back immovable property if you are not able to sell it off. As well, the settlement out of court, the settlement that you reach bilaterally with a borrower will now have to be recognized by the Debt Recovery Tribunal. They cannot walk in another direction or obstruct a settlement that you arrive at. This plus this conversion of equity into debt, together, is it making a seminal difference? Do you think you can reconstruct your NPLs faster because of these amendments?
No, Lata, just see, there are 2-3 good things which has happened in this amendment. Number one, the permission for holding the asset on my book. Now, normally what happens in India, you know how the property market operates. The people, first of all, they are not sure whether they will get a good title, although the banks are passing a good title to the borrower, but he is not sure. Number two, of course, sometimes cartel comes into the picture, and then the people try to extract maximum benefit by buying these property, and they would like to buy this property at a much cheaper price. Now, since the banks are permitted to hold on these assets on their books for some period, and then they can naturally sell these assets subsequently, I think it will go a long way in enabling the bank to resolve the NPA quickly, because first of all, taking possession of the assets takes long time. Then after taking possession, disposal unduly takes long time, and ultimately we continue to suffer. There is a provision for NPA. Now, once I take these assets on my book, at least I am relieved to that extent of property is on my books. Either if it is a residential property, I can put it to use for myself. It is a commercial property, I can put it to use for myself. And if otherwise, I can dispose it of also. So all these things will go a long way in putting a deterrent on the borrower that now the banks have a enabling clause where they can buy these assets directly. Till date, borrower feels that so long as bank is in a position to put up another purchaser, he will not be able to dispose of it. I think this is a welcome step which the government of India has taken, and I think now the banks are struggling with a huge amount of NPAs. This will be a good thing. Second, of course, this enabling clause for conversion of debt into the equity. Now, it will go a long way again in the sense, number one, the banks will be comfortable, ARC will be comfortable. If they feel that the unit is viable, then they can convert this debt into equity and then they can continue to hold. Or at some stage, you can enforce the change in management also. Now, till date, we are at the mercy of the borrower. The borrowers in today's environment, sometimes we feel that it comes as a matter of right that what you are going to do by classifying the account as NPA. And bank is in a, so to say, helpless situation. I think these amendments will go a long way in improving the health of the banking industry.
Yeah, Mr. Bansal, if you can give us some numbers, do you expect, therefore, that recovery number which you all post at the end of every quarter, you expect that to dramatically increase in the next 6 months?
Let us understand one thing. Our problem in India is if today some regulatory announcement on government announces some decision, then we expect from tomorrow onwards the entire environment will change.
No, I said 2 quarters.
The point is after 2 quarters, of course. Now, you cannot expect that in some dramatic change in the quarter happening in December. I think starting from quarter ending June, meaning thereby 1st April to June, because now the banks are empowered, will take some certain steps. Then this 60 days notice and then taking possession, then disposing of. All this takes 90 days to 120 days. I think starting from June 13 quarter onwards, the recovery will show at least 25% increase and the banks will be comfortable in disposing of these assets. I think it will go a long way in improving the health in the year ending 13-14 and 14-15.
Mr. Bansal, just on a side note, how exactly do you expect the gross NPA, net NPA situation to pan out into FY 2013 rather? Because there are a lot of bullish comments, or rather there's a huge run in the stock markets of a lot of these PSU banks, and does the fundamentals actually justify the valuations which they're possibly trading at this point?
I don't think the fundamentals have changed a lot, but the only thing is liquidity into the system is driving the pricing of the stock.
No, and so actually what I meant was the asset quality situation in 2013.
No, you said fundamentals have not changed a lot, Mr. Bansal. I mean, are you not getting a sense that in the system as a whole, NPLs are probably troughing out? You're not getting that sense at all?
Lata, I think all of us understand that NPA now, still there is a lot of pain in the system, and the bank ultimately will be only those banks will be a clear winner. Those who have put in place their recovery mechanism in place properly. All those banks which claim that NPA has peaked, I think we are not on the realities. Still there is a pain in the system. Some NPA will continue, but ultimately those banks which have put on their recovery mechanism in proper place, they will be the clear winner. And I think whatever changes you are expecting in the system, that will start happening from June quarter onward, because next 2 quarters, some pain will be there. The huge restructuring assets are lined up. Now, all these restructuring, now there will be more provisioning starting from this quarter. Now 2.75 RBI has already stipulated. Huge NPV hit is also coming on the bank's balance sheet. I don't think NPA has peaked yet, but maybe March 13 will be the last quarter when the banks will show substantial NPA, and then onwards it will be showing a downward trend.
All right.
Okay. Well, Mr. Rudran, I just had one more question for you. What is the total amount of assets that you have securitized so far from the banks?
See, our assets under management as on 31st March 2012 was 6,009 crores, 6009, which has come down slightly as on 30th September because we have made good recoveries. Of course, our acquisition has not gone to that extent because there has not been much acquisitions during this period because banks have not been willing to sell the assets because of the price differentiation. But definitely I'm sure by 31st March 2013 we will be able to acquire much more assets.
How much are you possibly targeting in terms of an increase?
Increase, I think this year I should be able to acquire around little over 1,000 crores.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, just a point of historical detail, it was 10 years ago when in around 2003 when, the NPL situation had become so bad that both the SARFAESI Act and the asset reconstruction companies were born. At that time, the total NPL in the system was about 1 lakh crore and we were all panicking. But asset reconstruction has been able to take over in all these years, just about 6,000 crore as, Mr. Rudran is pointing out. Now, I think we have more than double that in terms of NPL. So clearly, asset reconstruction company is a story that is just born and needs to do a lot. But that story is for another day. Mr. Bansal, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Rudran as well.
Thank you.
We have to take a break. We'll be back.